Okay, here we go. Here we are at Clay Hill Lodge, lovely place and all. Intend to read the instruction book sometime. Anyway, so there's a plateau up above us here where the original homesteader family had a cabin, an orchard, and a little field, and this millionaire kind of retiree guy from back east, Tom Staley Sr., came down the river and fell in love with the river, and he bought up two properties here from the old homesteaders. But he was a pretty nice guy. He let them live on as long as they could up in the cabin. But he's a smart guy. Advertising, wasn't it Mars Candy or something? Senior made his millions with.
Who?
Tom Staley Sr.
Tom Staley Sr. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so he's going to have his retirement, Wild Western retirement, and he comes out here and he
Tom Staley Enclave.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
He, had political. He was all over the place. Smart guy. And he got with Casey Werbinski, was the local carpenter fisherman guy, and Casey helped him throw up these places right before the regulations made it so you couldn't throw up places.
And they built extra shells because the scenic easement read that if you could take any foundation with 4 walls and take the square footage and move it anywhere on your property. So they just throw a bunch of these shells up.
Yeah, plywood.
Smart move. Yeah. Some of them are still standing.
Yeah, the garden shed is still up there. So anyway, but he set it up for this view. He threw this thing up because he recognized a good view when he saw it, and he had 2 sons, Edward and Tom Staley Jr. Ed went back to Wall Street. They both inherited like, what, 14 million something a piece or some big... Back when $1 million was a lot of money, And the one stayed on Wall Street and multiplied them. The other one, Tom Staley Jr., through a lifetime of drinking, drugging, and gambling, and marrying big-breasted women, and
It wasn't his.
His priorities were different.
Well, he was a sight to see.
I like his priorities.
A sight to see. No limit was his cry. Let's spend it all. You saw him, Dad. He was.
You're talking about Tom Staley Jr.?
Yeah, Junior. Yeah, Junior. He was.
Yeah, he had boat shops and.
Oh yeah, he was all over the place. But like I say, he managed to piss away his entire fortune except for these 2 properties, which...
Well, him and his brother had these properties.
Well, his brother didn't want them. He never was.
But he sold his once Tom died, and then he sold out from underneath Janet.
Oh, I didn't hear this part of the story.
Yeah. She didn't want to sell. She wanted to have him sell Wild River, but she didn't want to sell Clay Hill.
But she was forced into it.
She sold it out from underneath it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, his widow and daughters showed up when he died, and the fortune was gone, all except these 2 pieces of property. And it was a little rough transition for, kind of like reverse Beverly Hillbillies or something. It was tough on the girls. But anyway, that's part of the history. There's lots of other stories about the killer they let live up the hill.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Woody.
nice.
Woody got in some kind of a scramble with a guy up in Powers, and somehow the other guy got shot and killed, and couldn't be proven that it was necessarily a self-defense thing, but yeah, maybe it was, and so he agreed to live on an amnesty thing and live up here for, what, 17 years? think it was
Yeah,
17
yeah,
years.
yeah.
So he lived
Stay
out
out
his
of
time.
town. Don't go in the bars. Get in trouble.
Lived out his
because-
time. He'd take a wheelbarrow and go all the way down to Foster Bar to get his supplies,
Oh
and
my
then wheelbarrow it all the way back in
Wow.
6 miles.
Had plenty of time.
Had plenty of time. And he'd shoot the deer and can all his own meat. He was pretty self-sufficient. Had a nice garden, fruit
Uh-huh.
trees.